Welcome to Horror Mania. I'm your host Terrelle. This is a new channel I created so I could speak all things horror because I love the horror genre and I'll be constantly uploading reviews of horror films, new and old, classics and hidden gems that I want to talk about on this channel. So if you do enjoy this video, hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing The Wolfman, which I watched few days ago now. I watched it on Friday. At the time of recording, we're almost halfway through the following week. So I've watched it a few days. I've had a long time to let this film marinate on my brain. But my opinions on this film are quite strong from the moment I stepped out the cinema. So they haven't actually changed since I saw it, really. It's been very concrete. Of course, back in 2020, Leigh Whannell directed The Invisible Man, which was a modern vision of one of Universal's classic monsters. It was an excellent thriller that used the titular character to tackle themes of domestic abuse within its narrative. I actually rewatched that on the weekend as well after watching Wolfman, and yes, I can attest that was my first time watching it since the cinema, and it is a great film. Still, I still think it's a very good film. And fast forward 5 years, you have Leigh Whannell here now making his follow-up film, which is yet another film centered around a Universal monster from the classic era of Universal monsters, The Wolfman. Now, Wolfman tells the story of Blake, portrayed by Christopher Abbott, who, along with his wife Charlotte, who's portrayed by Julia Garner, and his daughter Ginger, portrayed by Matilda Firth, are attacked by an unseen animal while staying at a remote house. As the night continues, Blake himself begins to transform into something unrecognizable. Now, this iteration of Wolfman attempts to present a unique perspective for a werewolf story, gone are many of the tropes we've come to expect from films involving lycanthropy, and in its place we have a story that focuses primarily on a family and drops them within a home invasion style film where they are stalked by a creature outside the house before realizing that another threat is transforming inside. On paper, I see the appeal of this framework, but in summation, I appreciate what Wolfman is trying to do more than what he was able to achieve. I didn't have any expectations prior to watching this, and it still left me feeling very underwhelmed. Leigh Whannell dropped the ball with both the direction and the script here. Now, Leigh Whannell is a man I respect greatly, and I like a lot of his work. I think he, along with James Wan, he's almost like James Wan's secret weapon in a way, because James Wan gets a lot of the credit for creating Saw, Insidious, etc. But Leigh Whannell is the man that's, behind the camera. Well, not behind the camera, but the man that's penning the script for these films. And of course, for the original Saw, he was in front of the camera as a character in the film. And I think yes, Leigh Whannell is a writer. He's done a lot in the horror genre this century. He is one of the pillars of this generation of horror, and I think he needs to be appreciated and respected as such. And I truly believe that is the case, especially from my perspective anyway. But I do feel like he dropped the ball with this Wolfman film. This whole film feels one note throughout, and it fails to develop in any interesting or exhilarating ways. Even as a horror film, it mostly fails to create suspense and scares. Wolfman needed to at least deliver with the horror experience or deliver with the emotional side of the narrative and what's happening with the characters. Ideally, it would have done both, but it doesn't do either. One of the biggest problems this film has is it didn't successfully make me feel invested in the family and their story, so when it attempts to hit strong emotional notes, they fell flat. That includes the climax, which has a major crescendo within the score, as if to signify a big emotional moment, but it simply didn't work. Fatherhood is a core theme that is presented, but not enough is done with it to create any real depth or substance thematically. The script for Wolfman was first written during COVID, and this is apparent due to the isolation that the family endure within the house and the fact that the transition into Wolfman is treated more like a disease in this film than an actual kind of werewolf transformation into a beast. Even so, those aspects are lacking depth to make it something meaningful. Christopher Abbott's performance became better as he transitioned into the Wolfman compared to how it was when he was human. His emotional scenes prior to the transformation felt hollow, and I blame the script for this more than I blame him. But once he begins to undergo his transformation, his performance gains more merit. Julia Garner was miscast in the role of Charlotte, in my opinion. She didn't seem believable to me as the mother of Ginger and the wife of Blake. In the marketing materials for this film, I had assumed she was portraying the sister to Ginger, and that's because she looks quite young and doesn't have the presence of a mother. Christopher and Julia lacked chemistry as well, which didn't help matters. Their on-screen chemistry is so non-existent that it resulted in me never believing that these two people would have came together, got married, had a child, and were in love with each other. And for a film that focuses so heavily on the family and that aspect of it emotionally with the film, that's a big thing that's missing there to make that work. That's a big puzzle piece that's not present in this film. And it is made clear in the first act that Blake and Charlotte are going through an uncertain period in their marriage. But once again, like many other aspects of this film, this is just another aspect of the film that lacks depth and isn't explored beyond a brief moment. So it just fell flat and feels hollow as a result. The young girl, Matilda Firth, who portrays Ginger, she gave a serviceable performance, but I think she needed stronger direction to help her convey fear and sadness during the events that occur. Wolfman's biggest strength is how it depicts the initial phases of the transformation from Blake's perspective as he experiences shifts with his sensory capabilities. This is shown through a specific visual, which is accompanied by effective sound design. It's the most unique thing this film has to offer that actually works. It's just a shame that it was barely used outside of a couple great moments. One which is, I won't spoil, but was involving a loud sound that he can hear, and another scene that's set within the darkness as he stalks his family. The Fly is an obvious source of inspiration for how this film tackles the gradual metamorphosis. The practical makeup in these scenes is commendable, but the body horror elements seem bizarrely ineffective at evoking a response out of me, whether it be discomfort or disgust. It was kind of like I'm just watching it, but I'm in a completely relaxed state, just kind of passively watching it. And when you're making a body horror film, you want to evoke a reaction out of your audience. A recent film, which I absolutely love, is The Substance. That film did exactly that. Every evolution that occurs and every change that happens in a body horror sense in the substance almost gets some sort of reaction out of you, whether it's audible or just in your head. You're reacting to it and thinking, God, this is escalating. Whereas in this film, it just kind of felt like, okay, that's just happened. This has happened. And I think that might be because it's so obviously following the framework of The Fly that if you've seen The Fly, you just know the direction it's going in how it's trying to do what it's going to do. And obviously it's not going to be as effective as The Fly because the makeup effects aren't that great and the body horror on display isn't that detailed. So it really just, once again, like, although I'm saying this is among the best parts of the film, in a grand scheme of things, and when compared to other classic horror films, those aspects still felt a bit flat and a bit lacking to some degree. The majority of this film feels like it's stuck in first gear. The opening scene created a satisfactory amount of intrigue, but the following hour is excruciatingly slow, and the story really struggles to transform beyond its first phase. Even when the Wolfman aspects of the story take shape, it still largely feels uneventful and, dare I say, dull. There's no real structure to the story either. It's hard to discern where the second act ends and the third act begins. And once I realized the story was deep into the third act, I was left surprised that the film had no time left to do anything of note, which would go beyond the fairly basic setup and sequence of events that had happened thus far. What is supposed to be Blake's main transformation scene comes very late in the runtime, and it just wasn't satisfying. At that point, I succumbed to the thought that this film wouldn't be able to do anything that will make it feel worthwhile as an experience, and the design of the Wolfman left a lot to be desired. As I was watching the film, I was thinking to myself, this design of the Wolfman resembles a crawler from The Descent more than it resembles what I would say would look like the Wolfman, and I think that's something that a lot of people in general are going to be very disappointed about with this film, and just the overall design. One of the things you're coming to see with a Wolfman film is a new iteration of the Wolfman, a new design, you know, whether it's one that kind of pays homage to the original film, like what the 2010 film's design did, or something completely new. But what they give you here just doesn't resemble a wolf. Aside from the one visual element that changes whenever the point of view shifts, there's nothing distinct or interesting about the cinematography that is presented here. There's a lot of darkness and barely any shots that I would deem memorable. The sound design and score does a lot of heavy lifting throughout this film, and that is the one aspect of this film that I think gets a complete pass compared to the rest of it. I don't think there's anything you can criticize within the sound design or what the score is able to achieve in this film. If The Invisible Man was two steps forward for the glorious return of Universal's classic monsters, Wolfman is a step backwards. It has thematic ideas that could have worked, but the execution failed to develop them. I give Wolfman 2 stars out of 5. If you are thinking of watching this one, I'd say you don't need to go to the cinema to watch it. Wait for us until it's on a streaming platform for free and you'll be able to check it out then. But I think this film is quite disappointing, and I think that's made even more prominent by the fact that it was written and directed by Leigh Whannell, who I think has built up a track record in horror now that is quite commendable. And he's been so good as of late with Upgrade and The Invisible Man that he's kind of, for audiences at least, or film fans, I think there's a level of expectation or quality that you just expect from him. And I think that was missing from this film. But that's my review of Wolfman. Hit the comment section below to let me know your thoughts on this film, if you've seen it or if you plan to see it at all. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you liked this video, please like the video and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any future reviews that I do on this channel. Thank you. Speak to you guys in the next review.